as we lose third-party cookies, which who knows if Google will ever give it up because they can't make enough money. Any other scheme, they just can't make enough money. They're just like, no, not sandbox, and here's another purple monkey, here's another squirrel, here's another, and they just keep throwing things in front of us, and it's never going to change. They're never going to get rid of third-party cookies, as far as I can tell, until they can make enough money back off of the first party. So what are they doing? Look what they're going to do with IP addresses. They're going to shield IP addresses in Chrome. What does that mean? It's catastrophic to the B2B industry, because now I got to pay Google to find out what company was on my website or what company was there, and it's gonna kill ABM. I mean, I really believe that account-based marketing has run its course, and now you're going to see CRM-based marketing, and that's the big one is using HubSpot. And if Google does what it says wants to do with HubSpot, Salesforce better take a big page out of that playbook, because HubSpot was this big bloated piece that realized 15 years ago that forms were the whole gateway to everything, and they built the entire business off of forms. That whole business has been expanded because of their understanding of that. Now, if Google buys them, watch them shut out everybody else.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Super excited to catch back up with Jim Lillig, who is NSI Industries currently, but has a past that goes way back in digital marketing as I do. And the reason I'm super excited, Jim, to chat with you again is the level of B2B marketing that you do, is sort of really interesting, because you've got the channel, right? Because you sell through channel, but then I guess certain folks might buy direct. And, while people might consider some of what you guys sell, commodity, because you could probably find that same exact part in a different brand, you guys have managed to build an amazing business around supplying what might be seen as a commodity into the HVAC industry, plumbing industry, et cetera. So I'd love for you to sort of give the elevator pitch, like what do you guys sell and to whom, so that people can understand the context of our conversation.
No, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Love catching up. I've known you for 20 years plus, so it's always nice to catch up. Yeah, no, what we do at NSI is we're a PE-backed company that started 50 years ago, and has been building a portfolio of products in the electrical and now HVAC and now the building technologies sectors. And so in the electrical, we own Bridgeport brand, Bridgeport Fittings, Remke Industries, Polaris, not the fun one, the one that makes connectors, and then Torque, which is the timers and connectors. We also own metallics. We own a number of other smaller brands that are accessories. Our main product is electrical connectors. So I always like to say it's the stuff that ends up on the floor of electricians' trucks. It's our product category for the most part is miscellaneous. So building a brand around a miscellaneous product category, especially when you've got some of the largest corporations in the world as your competition, and you're not the world's largest corporation, you have to define your why pretty tightly. And so for us, that in the B2B space, our why is to be the best number two that could ever be for a distributor. We're probably not going to get that big initial order because that's just not the business that we've set up or to do it. We even just acquired a company called Cast Products here in Chicago that is the largest zinc third-party manufacturer of zinc products, contract manufacturer, just to keep our inventory up in the United States so that we can produce more. And that has everything to do with some political factors like the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which put $1.2 trillion back into the economy, right? All going towards federally funded infrastructure projects. Well, Pete Buttigieg, the Department of Transportation, is in charge of $580 billion of it. That's with a B. And so everything that goes to a bridge or to a tunnel or to updating the piping and what have you, everything's got electricity with it. And so, we look for opportunities to be able to do thought leadership. Well, When you make something that ends up on the floor of an electrician's truck, it's kind of hard to find something to talk about that people are like, wow, that's really interesting. Because what we make isn't. It goes behind a wall and no one ever sees it again until they rip it out. Nobody cares about it. Nobody loses any sleep. So for us, the marketing is more about establishing NSI as a brand that owns multiple brands. One, to the distributor, because that's who they buy from. And number two, to the end user who knows the brands and could care less about NSI. They just want the brand that they want. They want the product that they want. It saves time. It gives them, good performance. So our challenge in B2B is to educate that end user while promoting the brand, at the same time educating the distributor so that they understand that when the demand shows up, they can talk about it reliably and they get a good margin. Plus also we've created demand, kind of like, you see like Ego brand lawnmowers and blowers and trimmers and what have you. Kind of like that. We market so that we have a brand and you can get it at these distributors, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that we go to market with is on a B2B side is that the education of both sides. Plus we use in B2B, oftentimes you use a third party agent, a rep agency to do it. So we don't have agents, we don't have a huge sales force, but we have a number of rep agencies that represent us as well too. So you've got a number of pieces that you have to supply marketing communications to. You have to educate your rep agency so they can educate both the end user and the distributor in their territories. So there's a lot of activity that goes around as opposed to like a B2C campaign selling red gym shoes. You put a few ads up about red gym shoes, you send them to your website, you learn something about them, but you don't have this complicated sales process that you've got to understand. Like if I want to sell it on Amazon, I'm going to make a bunch of my people really unhappy, right? So there's these channel conflicts. There's all these pieces in B2B that you don't have in B2C typically. You just want to sell the product, get it into as many retailers as possible, and then do ads, right? Not so much in the electrical or in the specialty trades industry for manufacturing is because there's all these caveats and certain rep agencies can only sell certain lines. They can't sell other lines. So you have to deal with that. So there's a lot of complexity in the B2B space. So we're trying to reduce that complexity for our sales department by using Hubspot and let them kind of see the results of our work by the behaviors that their contacts are exhibiting. So visiting websites, downloading white papers, signing up for forms, watching video, interacting with pages, calling customer service, sending them emails. All that's being recorded, and that gives them a graph, and we score all that. So a lot of it's just integrated to try and take all the little pieces that we're putting stuff out and then listening and then putting that back eventually into a really good sales qualified lead for a salesperson.
Yeah, what's interesting, and the way you described it reminded me of some of the stuff we're doing for some of our B2B clients, because they want to kill multiple birds with one stone because they don't have a big budget, right? And so a lot of them are saying, well, I want to actually to talk about thought leadership, like as a subject matter expert, like we know our products and we know the industry, and we've engineered it to solve a particular problem. But we also want to get that social proof. So we want to do like social media with social proof, right? But I don't want to just call it social media because nobody in the exec organization thinks you ever sell anything via social media.
Yeah, it influences, but it never sells anything.
Right. So, but like they're like the influence is so difficult to quantify, right? So what they're saying is like, can we like use testimonials, use in the field videos, even if the production quality is not like what we used to call industrial video, but like actionable stuff. Like here's this product in action. Here's how you solve this problem. Yeah. Like creating that kind of content, because that is actually not only good for SEO because it fills up the SERP with like stuff you might have sitting somewhere else. Like it might be on a distributor site, might not be on your domain. It might be somewhere else. And plus, that educates the LLMs, right? So they're basically using it like it future-proofs my SEO. Right. If somebody asks, what's the best zinc-plated connector that has,
Yeah, a certain size or a
yeah,
certain rating
whatever,
or a
right?
certain NPT value. There's a
Yeah,
bunch of different stuff. So that's where like a configurator, those sorts of things really do help. But tying it back to our website is in flux right now because they're trying to suck in every brand that we've ever bought into one website, which is
right.
it's very difficult and it's very hard to get that architecture correct when every company that we buy has different facets to the products that they sell. So
Yeah.
some of them have, inches and that, and some of them have metric and so there's just just the sheer data is really, and that's, I mean, if you really want to talk about B2B, we're not a product company. We're a service company. 10 other companies can deliver the same product that we do.
Right.
And they're much bigger and they're probably better at it than we are. But the thing that we have is we're made in USA. Our inventory is here. It's not on a boat from China or from India. And you're going to get real customer service out of a smaller company than you're going to get from a much larger company. So there's all the pieces that people want and like at the convenience right in front of them, and that's what sets us apart. The bigger piece that sets any manufacturer apart that works with distributors is the fact that your data is now your product. So if your data doesn't, like for Granger, there are minimum 400 points of light or, references that you have to fill out, whether it's NA or 0 or whatever it is, it has to be filled out. If it's not filled out, they reject it. Okay? But they get to control that. Most of the distributors in the world aren't the largest distributors. They're not mom and pop shops, but they maybe have 5, 10, 15, 20 locations, but they still need your data in the best possible. One of the cool things is that if you understand B2B, having clean data and you sharing that with your distributors usually makes their Algolia or, search engine respond better to your listings when you give them things like availability and inventory and what have you. Most manufacturers,
Substitutions is huge, right? Like what other part does it replace?
right. I never, Kevin, I always say, I don't care about people coming to my website because they can't buy anything from my website. I want them to go to distributors. I
Yeah.
want to meet my customer at a distributor. And if they come to my website, that tells me I didn't give that distributor enough information to keep them there to make that decision, right? And so that's what we're working on is restructuring the entire organization, kind of along the lines of what Seth Early wrote about in his book, The AI-Powered Enterprise. If you haven't read it, it's an excellent book that gives the future of how B2B purchasing will be executed. And it all comes down to ontologies. And so if your ontology across your enterprise is bad, you're not going to be able to communicate across the entire landscape of your organization. So if everybody calls a rose until it gets to accounting and it's a red flower, and sales calls it a flower with a green stem and red leaves, now they're not going to talk. Those numbers aren't going to match, right? And so when you do that, it makes the C-suite go, well, what are you doing here? You don't have really good attribution, right? And so that's where understanding the ontology, explaining what is customer service here, what is an order, what is fulfillment, what is shipping, what is all these pieces of a business that has to operate. How are we talking about it? And that leads to a hierarchy, which then leads to ultimately a taxonomy that you can use in the web, which is how we get SEO to say, like, somebody, if we call it a cord end and an installer calls it a whiptail, do I want to call it a cord end on my website or do I want to call it a whiptail? And this is where not understanding that and having IT disjointed from marketing is really the piece that that most companies that I've consulted with or worked for, that's the disconnect.
Yeah.
They don't get that ontology to hierarchy to taxonomy. It all flows together, and it must be very disconcerting for you, Kevin, when you get a new client or exciting. And their stuff is just, it's in bins over here and it's in bins over here, and there's just nothing tying it together. So
Yeah.
that's what we try to do, is tie it all together here.
Yeah, I mean it's like actually a huge opportunity, right? Because a lot of the companies late to their digital transformation have the biggest upside by finally getting their act together from a data unification perspective.
Yeah.
But one point you made about when products are otherwise fairly commoditized, that the service is what differentiates, and that service means easy availability, easy to order,
Easy to do business with.
etc. Right? Those kinds of things are sort of things that delight the customer, right? And so when you think about, and people don't usually think about delighting the customer in B2B, but if a person needs that thing tomorrow and you can get it to them tomorrow, they're
Yeah.
delighted, right? So I often find that we when we look for how to create this co-created content that will end up being good for search and good for social and good for anything else, you have to sort of sometimes engage the influencers or the charismatic people within the ecosystem to say,
Hmm.
hey, would you mind shooting a quick video about how that whiptail saved
Yeah.
your ass, right?
Right.
Maybe you don't say
Exactly.
that exactly, but
Well,
getting them to create the content and then like posting it around and getting it up there, that's what gets your value proposition across,
well,
which is you're
I have a
providing.
great example of that, Kevin. When I was at Bosch, we ran a site called Be the Pro, and since I've left, this was 5 years ago. They never got the vision of it. But
Right.
my ex boss, who now works for Klein Tools, brainchilded this, and basically what it was is it was a forum. It was the second most active construction forum on the internet at one point with 12,000. I took it from 4,000 to 12,000 contractors, and basically what the whole concept was is you came in, and if you commented on people's work and participated, you could get up to 2,000 points a day, $200, 200 points a post. And the funny thing was is it was a community, and Bosch was one of the sponsors. It was the only sponsor. It was the big sponsor. But we also had Keen Boots. We had Quickcrete. We had several other Black Lader pants and workwear that you could redeem your points for, right?
Right.
But the coolest part of it was is that we were preceding the audience with Bosch tools and finding these tools, because I was also teaching tool blogging at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I was teaching the guys how to be tool bloggers. Well, they would be so happy to get a free, bevel chop saw or an OMT or an offset drill, that they would write. I would say, wouldn't it be nice if you could just write a 250-word article or send me a piece of video of you using it and what have you. And so for bigger projects, we actually paid a few guys to 6 months beforehand to use the tool. And by the time it launched, we had all this video content that people could watch and post on social, and our dealers could post on it. So,
Yeah.
the funny thing is, Kev, you mentioned social, and I love, Spark Toro. I think it's, if you're not using a Spark Toro account, you're really not understanding social media the way you
Yeah.
need to,
Interviewed Rand about it.
because we know his mom, and she was Moe's, and there's a whole history. I'm sure you already archived it many years ago. But the funny thing about it is the way you win at social. And I never put social as one of my things on my resume like I like to do, because it's a young people's thing. Anyways. But the way to win is not to get your audience engaged, but to get your audience's audience engaged. When you are able to make that leap and get your audience to share and that's what Spark Toro tells you, is what your audience's audience is interested in responding to. Now that you know that, you write content for the layer outside your immediate layer.
Right.
When you do that, it comes back and you grow your followers. Then you do it again, and they grow it again. That works not every time, but geez, if you don't have that, especially in B2B, because there's so little, like LinkedIn, there's a lot going on there. I get a lot of great stuff, but the problem is LinkedIn, the most dedicated people who love their jobs are never on LinkedIn.
Yeah, they don't need to be.
Very few. It's kind of I call it the khaki pants of social networking, because it's where you kind of, and it's evolved. It certainly has evolved. They've given you more tools to chat with people, and I see it evolving as that. But I also see it as there are people who use it all the time, but you're missing a huge sector of your target market if you just think you're going to get them through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you've got to do programmatic. You've got to do Google Ads. The problem with Google Ads is it's really, really difficult to target B2B customers with their targeting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the part and so search becomes search and SEO become paramount. So in pay-per-click, I've always said there's 4 buckets. There's brand, that's you. So like Remke cord grips, and then there's generic cord grips, and then there's competition, Bridge or Arlington cord grips, and then there's the number one, fourth bucket is intent, and that intent bucket is where you should be putting all your money because those are questions. Those you're answering people's questions, and what do they use search for?
They fix a problem, answer a question.
Right, exactly. So if you answer their question before they even know they have a need for the question, you're going to win 90% of the time. But most people don't ever put their bird on the shoulder of their user and listen to what that motivation is behind the search. That's the key to, it's the key to pay-per-click is you got to get to the goal that they were trying to express with the words.
Yeah, the other amazing thing about the strategy that you described about understanding your audience's audience, the extra layer out, is a lot of folks still don't understand how the LLMs work, right? And the LLMs are ingesting content that's out there all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. So while your content is out there getting created and co-created and posted and just, and whether it's on YouTube or it's on any crawlable site, right? The LLMs they're going to crawl it, they're going to ingest it, and they're going to use it to inform their decisions as people start to ask some of these questions. Because if you ask a chatbot, unless it's Perplexity, which has a little bit of a search engine results page, right? Most of them are just to give you one answer, right?
Yeah, unless you tell it to give me 5 answers.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends on how you craft your quote or your prompt.
But yeah, I mean, the point is that the algo for LLM-based results is different than the regular Google algorithm or Bing algorithm, right?
Yeah.
So content creation and content syndication feeds that LLM, right? So you get to basically take credit for that content driving, future-proofing your SEO.
You know what? It's so funny because we launched, I told you we did a thought leadership campaign, and that thought leadership campaign included a website because if I included all the buyer's guide and information for this webinar that we put on with Distribution Strategy Group, it would have gotten lost on our main website. So I had to put up a dedicated site called IIJA Buyer's Guide. And that site, it's starting to catch on in search results. The problem is that everybody who explains the act, the IIJA and the Buy America, Build America Act, they're all government websites. So what I found was that on the resources page, if I just aggregate all the government resources, now I'm starting to build more page authority because of the outlinks to this content, right? And as I get better and better at doing it, I'm starting to see it climb up quite a bit. And so it's I knew I was in an uphill battle because it's all government sites, and Google just loves government sites and Wikipedia, whatever. Funny story. And so for me, I see that exact thing play out all the time. Now, I haven't been in pay-per-click with it, but we've seen some of our competitors start to do some pay-per-click on there. But we're starting to get some traffic to it and get webinar signups. And so it's interesting to show this organization that's never done this. Until I got here 2 years ago, they'd never done one ad. Last year, we did 8 million impressions and 60,000 landing page hits, right, in 1 year. 14 campaigns launched, and no one had ever done a digital ad in their life on our staff. So we took that from 0 to 8 million. And this year we've already got 3.5 million impressions going out across publisher sites, across Google Ads, across Simplify for geofencing, because a lot of our business is small branches. We can't get that out of like Sales Intel or any of the smaller companies are tough for data companies to get data on. Yeah. So we just geofence people, and then we set up traps, called traps, better, anyways, that watch that cohort for like 30 days. And then somebody who enters more than 20 times in 30 days, we assume that they are an employee. So now we take that cohort and serve them one ad and get rid of all the transients inside that geofence. And so now we have a nice clean list of, okay, ABC distributors on Main Street in Dubuque, Iowa, we now have a list of you. So I can go. So when we say we want to go to Dubuque, Iowa, all I got to do is pull that list up and bam, now I can drop ads to just those people who were at that location at that time. And I can even look 365 days backwards, like for a trade show, right? We're not going to do a trade show. At least we're going to geofence it, right? And the cost of geofencing is so cheap right now that it makes no sense. I mean, for
No,
$400, I can
the
do a
labor
show.
is a bigger cost than the media for that. Just to
Oh,
send
100%. 100%. And it makes no sense. And here's the other part is as we lose third-party cookies, which who knows if Google will ever give it up because they can't make enough money. Any other scheme, they just can't make enough money. They're just like, no, none, sandbox, and here's another purple monkey, here's another squirrel, here's another, and they just keep throwing things in front of us, and it's never going to change. They're never going to get rid of third-party cookies, as far as I can tell, until they can make enough money back off of the first party. So what are they doing? Look what they're going to do with IP addresses. They're going to shield IP addresses in Chrome. What does that mean? It's catastrophic to the B2B industry,
Yeah, of course.
because now I got to pay Google to find out what company was on my website or what company was there, and it's gonna kill ABM. I mean, I really believe that account-based marketing has run its course, and now you're going to see CRM-based marketing, and that's the big one is using HubSpot. And if Google does what it says wants to do with HubSpot, Salesforce better take a big page out of that playbook, because HubSpot was this big bloated piece that realized 15 years ago that forms were the whole gateway to everything, and they built the entire business off of forms. That whole business has been expanded because of their understanding of that. Now, if Google buys them, watch them shut out everybody else. If you don't have a HubSpot CRM and you don't have all that data in there, you're not going to get premium ads shown to those people.
Yeah, I mean, custom audiences will remain as powerful as the ability of the ecosystem to tie back the anonymous identifiers to an individual or a household. It's really interesting in our direct mail business, post-pandemic, when we were doing B2B mailings, we started mailing the executives' home addresses as well, because now they only come into the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So because you're selling to a person, you're not selling to a company. The person,
right, or a group of people who's got to make a decision.
Right, yeah, exactly. But there's all the people who are influencers of the decision, right? Yeah. And so, in the same way that you're essentially geofencing a household to do CTV in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. Because an important person lives there or works there in the case of a business location. What we're doing sort of the same thing. When we mail these custom direct mail pieces, and they have their unique QR code, everybody gets their own QR code, and then we feed that directly into HubSpot, right? So when the person scans a QR code, we create the Gungary.
And then you score that, you add that to their score, and that probably puts them over 100 right there. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, if they thought enough of the offer for the QR code that they
pull their phone out and scan the QR code, we want a salesperson to talk to them, right? And so
not right away, because it's creepy. You can't say, we noticed you visited the website.
You got to give it at least 24 hours and maybe an email that goes in between that says, hey, we'd like to talk to you. Here's a number you can call and get in touch with us and let them do it. If they did that, and then give them 24 hours and then follow up with the phone call, that's a great sequence. And that's, like I said, that's B2B marketing, right? Yeah. That's the sort of omni-channel, omnipresence that you have to have. I mean, we both watched, I'm 60 years old, so I watched media fragmentation happen right in front of me, right? I went from, when I was 18, we watched the last episode of Cheers, 72 million people tuned in. You can't get 72 million people to tune into the Super Bowl. So, so today, you have to have these multiple facets everywhere, because everybody is everywhere.
Yeah,
they're on streaming, they're on games, they're on apps, they're on websites, they're on mobile devices, they're on tablets, they're walking into stores. So retail media networks. Watch how that's going to explode over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yes, it's crazy.
Right. My boss at my job now was the head of a VP of marketing at Lowe's for 15 years. Believe me, I get all kinds of insights into how that works as far as that. But retail media networks, man, that's going to be the next one, because out of home, that's the next frontier.
Yeah, they had the the old school retail media network was like shelf placement, right? Paying for end caps,
right? Exactly. Eyeball.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or like doing in-store couponing in the grocery area, right? That was retail media networks, but now they're activating their Wi-Fi and you're connected into the receipt printer.
Well, screens on every aisle. Screens in every aisle. Screens at the end of every aisle. That's what it's coming to. Is it went from at Bosch, we used to use little sensors. What do they call them? The radars that tell somebody's in the aisle. And
Yeah.
then
Beacons, I think they were.
beacons,
Yeah.
right? We would use beacons, and then if they stood there for 15 seconds, they would get a message on the screen.
Yeah.
We were looking into this little Band-Aid type thing you could put on a tool, and if it got moved from a bay and somebody held it, it would make the video on the screen in front of them show up about that tool, right? That's what we were working on,
Yeah.
do stuff like that. But those are the sorts of stuff. I mean, hell, I'll be honest with you. One of the greatest things that I've ever seen work greatly is Klein Tools has and it works great for the trades, but they have a text club. And I swear, when one of the initiatives that I was involved with at Bosch was using text club people and tie that to weather. So, like, electricians can't work outside when it's raining. Really difficult to do. But when it does rain, they like to go to the specialty stores and go check out the specialty tools. And especially if you give them, like, oh, spend $250 today at Ned's Tool World and get a free Yeti mug. It's raining in Dallas. What else are you going to do? Go get donuts at Dan's, Tool Hut and hang out with the other electricians, spend $250 and get a free Yeti mug. So that drove a lot of sales. Those are the sorts of things, like, when you really, in the niches of the riches, the deeper you understand your audience, at the bottom of that are people who really want your product, right? But you got to get that message to them. And that's the difficult part that most B2B marketers have. They're so caught up on impressions and what have you, that getting to leads, getting to a real CRM, which most don't have. I'm sure you can back me up on that, is when you get a client, most are, yeah, well, we have Hubspot. And it's like, you look at it and you're like, no, you opened the box and spilled all the pieces on the ground, and you don't have a bicycle that anyone can ride. So I'm going to put the pieces together for you, and you're going to ride it. And even then, they're like, well, hold on, you put the handlebar on the back side and you put the front wheel in the back, and they're like, no, let me just do it. And so,
the other reason I really like the fact that you're focusing, or refocusing on CRM, right? And we are a HubSpot agency, and you have a bunch of clients there, is
right.
So many B2B marketers and B2C marketers don't understand the difference between their best customer and their average customer, right? The top decile is like the customer that matters. Everybody else is like, yeah, they're nice to have and not turning them away, right?
No.
But there's an 80-20 rule. There's some kind of power curve going on there.
Right.
And if you're just treating everybody the same,
right,
then you're missing the opportunity, because the people at the top are worth 5 times or more than 5 times more.
That's a great point, because here, I work for a PE-backed company, right? And so one of the things that there's a big discussion in our practitioners' world of B2B is marketplaces, right? Is how do you install? Well, if you're a PE fund and you're buying a bunch of companies, are you buying companies, are you buying their products, or are you buying their buyers? Because ultimately you buy a company to buy the people who buy from that company, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you've got like us, we have 9 businesses that are all associated, from electrical tape to wire clips to you name it in the electrical space, we make it. Wouldn't you want that buyer from Remke to also buy from Bridgeport and to these other companies? Well, if you just keep building portals, customer portals, what are you doing? You're putting fences up. You're basically saying, okay, you can only buy this from here. And yet we have all these other companies like Rubbermaid. If they have, like, they own 25 companies. Most of them are in the maintenance and space for products. And so, like, one buyer from that company could get across the entire spectrum. That's where I think the next move is for B2B, is to understand that these younger buyers don't want to play golf. They don't want to drink scotch. They don't want to go to dinner with some guy my age and looks like me. They want to get their job done, and they want to buy 400 things a day. The guy my age who's been buying 5 things a day for the last 20 years probably ain't going to be there after that. So that's what I look at from a B2B perspective, is this younger, young Turks that are coming up that basically adopt technology at such a fast rate that it's hard to keep up with them, and they want a mall. They don't want to have to go to a million different websites to do things. They want to consolidate. Why do you think Amazon wins? They buy from Amazon because they can get it all in one invoice, one shot, one done.
Yeah, and it's that brings to mind the somewhat touchy issue at B2B players who have a big distributor network, which is, you might have a different distributor for 3 of your brands versus 2 of the other brands, right? And having that holistic shopping experience is more difficult, but also how do you end up with the PII, the customer information of their customer, so that you can help them sell? Like having a cooperative relationship.
Yeah, no, we
with
don't get
those
POS.
distributors.
We're not, nobody in this space gets POS. And that would be the key to it. We try, I mean, there's multiple different ways
Yeah.
that you can
I,
try
I
and
don't think
claw
you'll ever
that
get
back from
POS because there's
rebates
privacy
and
implications for POS, right? But the question is, can you, through communities and forums and socials, have enough of a footprint into the final buyer, because you're trying to influence that tiebreaker, right? Because
yeah,
the one common thing between retail media and having competing brands is the tie gets broken in the aisle at the store, right?
yes,
Because at the time they walk in, they probably don't have a strong brand preference.
right,
They're
right.
like, okay, I slightly prefer Coke to
I'm buying
Pepsi.
light bulbs.
Yeah, right. So, but that tie break, right? That tie break is huge
Right.
at that point of purchase, right?
And that's
So
the value
anything you
prop
can
that
do,
yeah.
because of the fact that you do have a permission relationship, or maybe a social media relationship or something with the end user buyer, you can influence that tie break, right? Because
Yeah.
that tie break is so key to
Well,
getting
and
share of
in bigger
wallet.
contracts, it's even better because, like I said, now that I'm able to target out of my CRM, I'm able to now design messaging and creative that speaks to a finance guy as opposed to an operations guy. And that's the next level. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw it in website. I mean, ours isn't there yet, but the companies that do website personalization, and I know, Optimizely and a few others, I'm not sure that's really as fully baked as everybody wants it to believe. Is that, how, if you're not marketing out of your CRM and know that this person's been on your site 10 times in the last 4 days, what content are you going to show him that's going to be better than, him finding it himself? And that's where I want AI to tell me
Yeah.
what that is, because I don't see anything doing that for me right now as far
I
as
mean, the vector databases that are going to be powering that AI
yeah.
suggestion level and doing it at the personal level, they are going to be amazing. I don't think they're there yet. So we
Yeah,
need
I
to
know,
both hold our
and there
breath.
may not be, because the LLMs that they're being. See, the problem is that when you mention LLMs, I love thinking that we can train our own, like with was it Claude? I used any word, whatever, same thing as far as that, and I couldn't get my people to really understand it and use it on a daily basis, so I had to cancel it out. But eventually, I think every company will have its own AI database that it uses its own, if you're smart, and you'll start feeding every piece of information you can. The issue that you have with that is the black box smart enough to understand where to put the signals and
Yeah.
where to put the signal strength, right? And you can tell me AI is going to take people's jobs, and it probably will. But at the end of the day, you're going to need somebody who's going to wrangle that and do it. When I was at Bosch and we were doing Be the Pro, we tried with a team of data scientists from Germany to basically understand the sentiment around the comments about our competitors' tools, about Milwaukee, DeWalt, Metabo, you name it. And all of it was there. They all talk about it, what have you. But there was nothing at the time, this is going back 7-8 years, there was nothing at the time to aggregate that data and then parse through it in a giant way to say, when Milwaukee is mentioned, what is the sentiment around it? And if you hear the word, like, they'd say, oh, it's badass. Well, that would take it as a negative sentiment. So you're like, no, they actually meant it's right. They're like, well, bad is bad and ass is bad. And so the two words, we couldn't get it we couldn't tweak it. Now, I wish I worked there now so that I could do it. I wish they would have kept that site together. But that would have been a way to really understand that. And so, like, those forums, especially like for B2B, I mean, we launched the Pro Insiders at Bosch. We had 400 contractors that told us why they liked our tools, why they liked our competitor tools, what they didn't like about us. Those are the sorts of stuff. When you start getting that first party data, now you get the insights on there. But so many companies miss that. And with the deprecation of third party cookies, all I preach at every meeting is first party data. Every meeting, it's like, nope, if I can't get first party data from it, why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? If I can't get another data point, why am I doing it? Because I'm not going to be able to, I can't get them from like I said before, we have to tap into the social hash. Otherwise, I can't target them on Google Ads. I don't have enough there's just not enough targeting firepower
Yeah, not
to
enough
get down
signals.
to the guy that I need. Like a great example. So an electrician is really easy, right? They're really proud about being electricians. They love funny shirts. They raise their hand on social media. I'm an electrician, right? But if you're an electrical distributor, counter worker, sales guy, you have no special. I'm not nothing against sales guys who are listening to this, is that, but you're not raising your hand on social media. I'm a sales guy at a counter in Yuma, Arizona. That doesn't happen, right? What does happen
that
is
one
he goes
doesn't
home and
buy the
watches
swinging
Twitch.
pipe T-shirt the way the
Exactly.
public is, right?
Exactly. So you can't find the counter worker who I want to educate about my products, about the electrician that I hit up on Instagram, who's now walking into his store and asking about an Easy Lock fitting. I can't get him as easily on social media as I can get him, but I can get him because of his professional association and his email address at his company. So there are multiple ways to get that. What we talked about at first is to get that education of the end user and then back that up with information for the distributor that they're going to go to and go through that. And once again, then up the chain, the rep agency needs to have all that information so they can get it there. So it's one big bundle of spaghetti.
Well, we covered a tremendous amount of stuff. Probably went longer than we should have.
Oh,
but,
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. It's all absolutely great stuff, and I'm sure that everyone is now got a huge homework assignment who's in B2B and has channel issues to really think through how do you get that first party data? How do you market better? So I appreciate you joining me on the podcast, Jim.
Always interesting, Kevin. Whenever I speak to you, we always seem to have a really good discussion. So.
Absolutely.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.